Hey guys, Ron from New Record Day here. Glad to be back doing another teardown video. It's been a little while since we've done one of these videos and they're a lot of fun and you guys seem to really like them. In this episode we're going to be doing a teardown of these guys that are behind me, which are the SVS Prime Pinnacles. And these were sent out from SVS to review, and that review will be up later this week. So let's go ahead and show you everything you get with the SVS Prime Pinnacle in terms of the speakers and all of the crossover components and the cabinet, and kind of just cover everything that we can, and I hope you enjoy this. If you're brand new to my channel, make sure you subscribe. And if you like this kind of content, let me know by hitting the like button. That would be really appreciated. And if you have any questions, leave your comments down below. Now, with that being said, I do want to offer up a quick disclaimer that with these teardown videos, I do this so I can show you all of the nitty-gritty inside of these speakers. I want to show you as much as I possibly can, but in no way, shape, or form am I encouraging you to take apart your speakers. Please don't do that. It's a terrible idea, and I can promise you that you will void your warranty and possibly break things, so just enjoy the video. It's the reason that I do these videos, is so you don't have to. So let's have some fun. All right, so we're gonna be talking about the cabinet last, and there's quite a bit to talk about with the cabinet. I didn't get the crossovers out of these guys, and I'll show you why when we get to the cabinet. Let's go ahead and discuss what we have on the table first, starting with your binding post cup. And what we have here is kind of your basic plastic binding post cup, and that's going to be a 5-way binding post plate, so you can accept all different types of speaker cables, bare wire, spades, bananas, you name it, you're good to go. Now, with the SVS Prime Pinnacles, they do come with two different types of footers, I guess is what you can call them. You either have spikes, which I have installed right now because I have some really thick carpet, or you also have these guys. Not sure if you can see that, but essentially it's just this kind of, hard rubber, and it just screws into the bottom of the speaker, and there you go. And then in the example of the spikes, you do have these little discs that you often see that, you know, if you have hardwood floors and you want to use the spikes, you're not damaging your floor, so that's nice to see. And then last but not least, you do have these little, thumb washers, I guess is what you can call them, to where if you wanted to adjust the height and lock in the height of every single spike, you have the ability to do that with these. That's what these are intended for. Yeah, so you got a couple of different options when it comes to the feet on the SVS Prime Pinnacles. And like I mentioned before, I have the spikes installed on the speakers themselves right now, so I'll show those to you when I can in just a second. Let's go ahead and talk about the drivers. Now, if you haven't seen the teardown video of the SVS Ultra, now would be a good time to do it so you can kind of make your own comparisons of the two, but this tweeter looks a lot like the SVS Ultra tweeter. It is a 1-inch aluminum dome tweeter, and the only thing that I think is going to be a little bit different in terms of physical appearance is the faceplate. The faceplate on the SVS Ultra was a little bit more detailed with these fine little lines on the faceplate, and on this guy it's just smooth. But even still, without that detail, this is a nice looking tweeter. It is heavy in the hands, and from what I can see here, this is definitely metal, most likely aluminum. Nice looking tweeter. So yeah, that is the tweeter on the SVS Prime Pinnacle. Let's go ahead and take a look at the mid-range. All right, and here we have the 5¼ woofer that is used for the mid-range on the SVS Prime Pinnacle. And this is an interesting driver. This is actually a new development with SVS. It's a new driver for them. And what we're seeing is the same glass composite material used for the cone that we see in the Ultra line, which is really cool to see it in this guy. And then another really interesting thing that I noticed is the frame itself might look like cast aluminum, but it's not. It is actually ABS fiberglass. So we have a really lightweight, low resonant frame on this driver, and that's an interesting change-up that we're seeing with the Prime Pinnacle. And guess what? These three drivers are the same. So they all have this kind of hard ABS fiberglass frame. I didn't see that coming, and that's an interesting change up. So pretty cool. All right, so what we're looking at now is the 3 woofers that are inside the SVS Prime Pinnacle. These are all 6.5-inch drivers. And yeah, this is a hefty woofer. There's some weight to these guys. And as I just noted, this frame is just fiberglass frame, which is interesting to see. And the cone material being used is polypropylene, which is certainly a material that has been used in a lot of speakers over the years. And yeah, substantial motor structure, heavy drivers, probably pump out quite a bit of bass. Stay tuned for the review and I'll give you my thoughts and opinion about that. And yeah, those are the 3 woofers that you're gonna find in the SVS Prime Pinnacle. Alrighty, so before we clear off the table and talk about the cabinet, what we have in here are poly sheets, and we've been seeing these in pretty much every single teardown that we've done so far. I do want to give props when it's appropriate, and it is appropriate in this particular example that you start paying attention to little things, and all of these sheets are like laser cut, and they all fit in perfectly inside the cabinet. And I just thought that was interesting. They didn't just throw in some sheets that were cut by some dude not paying attention. It's all really clean, and I can appreciate that. Little details, they matter, and they matter a lot. All right, let's clear off the table and talk about the cabinet and the crossovers that we're seeing inside of the SVS Prime Pinnacles. And there is your spike that comes with the SVS Prime Pinnacle. I didn't want to forget that, so that's what those guys look like. Man, these things are heavy. All right, so I guess that a good place to start is with the basics. This is their piano gloss black finish, and it's stunning. Okay, so that's me moving away from being objective and just giving you my opinion. Look, SVS, they know how to do finishes, and this guy is no exception to that. On the front, you do have an interesting feature on the baffle, which is these cuts, and you can clearly see that it almost goes all the way down to the bottom. I'll go ahead and show you the bottom here real quick. Let me get behind the camera. All right, I'm just gonna do a pan there, and you'll see that those cuts on that baffle, they stop right about there. And if we get all the way down to the bottom, it's just a clean line down at the bottom. So as you go up higher, those cuts on the side, which are gonna minimize diffraction, they get a little bit deeper there, which is interesting. I like that design, it looks clean. I dig that. And I know it's hard to see with all the reflections, but this is what I'm talking about, is this is at an angle on the sides here, and it looks really handsome, really nice. Okay, let's go back to this guy. So the speaker grill is not magnetic. I wish it was, but what we have here are these little plastic tabs, and they fit inside these little rubber fasteners here, and it works fine. So that's that. And from the floor with the spikes to the top, I'm at 41.5. No, I'm not. That's a lie. 41.25. So that is with spikes being taken into consideration up to the very top of the speaker. And I am showing, I'm trying to figure out if that changes as we go down. Am I crazy? Does that have a slight? No, it's straight down. I am crazy. All right, so the width on this guy is 8.5, right at 8.5 from what I can tell. And the depth is spot on, 13 inches. All right, so those are the dimensions of the enclosure. And let's go ahead and take a look at the inside of the enclosure. So starting at the top, we have our first enclosure within the enclosure. And this is sealed, okay? There's no ports in here, nothing like that. We just have these terminal wires with little connectors that plug right into the back of that mid-range that we were looking at earlier. And then below that, we have our second enclosure, which is ported. There's a, you're not going to be able to see this no matter what I do with the camera, but at the top, there is the first port that we see in this enclosure, and this is the first woofer and the tweeter that is sharing this same space, and there is a crossover in here. So let me go ahead and lower the camera, reposition this to where you can see it a little bit better. Let me see if I can get that just focused in a little bit better. There is the top crossover, and as I mentioned before, there's a crossover down below that we're going to take a look at in just a moment that covers the lower woofers, but on this guy, I am showing a total of, let me just see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 components. And of those components, you guys are looking at 2 sandcast resistors. We have 2 electrolytic caps. We have 2 iron core inductors, 1 air core inductor, and 1 poly cap. So that is the top crossover that we're taking a look at. Now, another interesting thing that we need to take note of is because we are dealing with different enclosures within this cabinet, the enclosures themselves and the wood that is being used to create these compartments is also acting as the internal bracing for the cabinet. And I gotta say, that works. Doing a quick knock test, we have our first compartment up here. We have our second compartment with the first woofer and tweeter. We have our third compartment for the third woofer. And then lower, we have the last compartment for the bottom woofer. Let me go ahead and angle the camera down and we will take a look at the bottom 2 compartments. All right, guys, so right below the compartment that we were just looking at, we have our third separate compartment. And again, this has its own port and the bottom part of the crossover, which I am going to take a stab at in saying this is handling the bass frequencies, is down below, and there's 3 parts on that crossover board. You have 2 iron core inductors, and then you have 1 electrolytic cap. Let me see if I can angle this to where you can see it just a little bit better. That should give you an idea. And then down below where our bottom woofer goes, we have our last part of the cabinet. Again, this is its own enclosure inside of the cabinet, and we have our final third port down below. And there's quite a bit of space down here with this bottom woofer, which makes sense. I would think that if SVS is tuning this to a particular frequency, and I wish that I could measure it right now, but my measurement rig it's pretty much toast right now. I would love to know what the tuning is of that guy, because I have a feeling you're probably going to be getting the deepest bass from this bottom part of the speaker. That makes the most sense to me. Either way, let me go ahead and flip this guy around, show you the ports, and we'll be done with this teardown. All right, let me see if I can pull this off. So there is where our binding cup goes and the first port. Moving up, we have our second port. Moving up yet again, we have our last port. I hope you enjoyed this teardown of the SVS Prime Pinnacle. Stay tuned for the review that's going to be coming out later this week. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video.